Right.
Yes.
Okay, so Maria, feel free to, to say when I have to move on, to move back.
Yeah, let's go to the next.
Perfect. Let's start then.
I studied 2 case studies of indigenous-led and environmental movement-led campaigns against oil infrastructure in 2 Russian regions. One was a historical campaign against oil infrastructure in Sakhalin, and another one is ongoing campaign against oil spills and oil infrastructure in Komi Republic. Next, please. My major research question was when and why social movements against oil infrastructure have an impact on governance of oil in Russia, and what is the role of the global actors in governance of oil in Russia. Next, please. I used for my work theoretically the governance generating networks concept. So according to this concept, there are nodes of global governance design which are located transnationally, where global standards for the whole world are developed, such as United Nations, investment banks, and others. Then there are sites of implementations where people are affected, and these global standards, if they are implemented, they can help, or in addition to national legislation. If they are not adopted, then they don't make any difference. And plus, I'm looking at forums of negotiation in different spaces and how they affect what kind of global standards and when are implemented. In this case, I was also looking, I was looking at both bottom-up campaigns from the bottom up to the global scale, and looking what was the resonance on different levels, what was the dissonance of in different levels, and whether there was amplification of impacts locally or globally. Next, please. In Sakhalin, there are 2 large consortiums, Sakhalin 1 and Sakhalin 2. Sakhalin 1 is a pretty old consortium, they both are old, and its operator is ExxonNefteGaz Limited, which is subsidiary of ExxonMobil in the US. And from Russian side, there is Rosneft and many other companies. In Sakhalin 2, Sakhalin Energy, which is a Russian-based company, is an operator, and it was created because Shell lost part of its shares, but originally Shell was very much involved. And from Russian side, Gazprom, Sakhalin Holdings is very involved, and other companies as well. Next, please. Here is the map where we show how Sakhalin 1, what is the infrastructure of Sakhalin 1. It is pretty modern map, but I will talk on the campaign, earlier campaign, when not all of that was built. Next, please. And this is the map of Sakhalin 2 consortium. You see also huge oil infrastructure all around, stretching through the Sakhalin island. And this is also pretty modern map. Next, please. This uprisal against oil infrastructure is called the Green Wave campaign. It was very local campaign of indigenous people against the impacts of oil construction. It was pretty small, around 250 protesters, and they were crossing the roads, and they were demanding the social expertise. They were against destruction of their natural heritage. And they were very much concerned about the constructors who damaged the streams where salmon rivers and streams. There is a big, pretty large environmental NGO on Sakhalin Island, which is called Sakhalin Environmental Watch. And at that time, Sakhalin Environmental Watch managed to raise pretty large campaign of environmental NGOs. And on the local level, Sakhalin Environmental Watch was supporting the campaign of indigenous people. Next, please. Now, here is just images of the green wave. Next, please. And the market campaign was directed mostly against the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, which was the major investment in Sakhalin 2. Sakhalin 1 was also affected by the campaign, despite that ExxonMobil was investment. So there was no other banks. But Sakhalin Energy was affected much, much more. The foreign environmental NGOs also played a major role in this campaign, organizing Pacific Environment and Sakhalin, working hand in hand with Sakhalin Environmental Watch. And Bank Watch Network was also heavily involved. If indigenous people were mostly concerned about salmon rivers and about damage to the reindeer herding and about local damages, the major message to the global scale, to the Bank of Reconstruction and Development coming from NGOs was gray whales, which are the World Heritage, and stellar sea eagles. And also they were very carefully looking at the permits, and they found that pipelines are built at the earthquake zone. Next, please. So this was a successful campaign. It was pretty short, just 2 years. And already in January 2007, European Bank of Reconstruction and Development canceled the big loan. Officially, they said that they canceled it because of the change of the ownership, because Gazprom bought 50+1 shares. But all informants around this case, all stakeholders say that definitely the campaign played a major role. Sakhalin too changed their practices significantly, and already in 2008 they received new investment from other international banks. But on the local level, it was a big impact of this campaign, because both Sakhalin 1 and Sakhalin 2 just made grant programs for indigenous people. And Sakhalin 2 even allow indigenous people to decide who will get the grants and how. Also, lots of global standards were adopted from International Finance Corporation, World Bank, European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, and all guidelines from the UN. And I would say that free, prior, and informed consent is used in a pretty reductionist way, because it kind of says only that indigenous people can allocate the money which is already given to them, but they cannot really have a say about the oil production itself. But still, it is kind of declared that it is applied on Sakhalin Island. Please, the next. The next slide. The other case study is very, very different. It is Russian Lukoil company, which is a big, also transnational corporation of Russian origin. And I was looking here at Lukoil Komi, which operates in Nenets Autonomous Okrug and in Kobe Republic. And it bought oil companies which were bankrupt, and they got very outdated pipelines, and they have kind of a plan when to change them, which is for 20 years. And oil spills are happening there just all the time. And the movement against these pipelines and against oil spills and against building new infrastructure, which local people feel is not safe, are ongoing and continuing. Now here you see the map with the villages. I visited all of them and worked with reindeer herders and local residents. Next, please. So if we look chronologically, it is a very long campaign which started in perestroika years, and the major environmental organization is a Safe Pechora Committee, which worked hand in hand with indigenous people ICASS, which are not recognized, which are not recognized as indigenous by the Russian state, but they are recognized by UN and by major indigenous association around PON. Greenpeace was participated, the protests were going on in many villages, and IGVE, German-based organizations, were trying to write reports through the UN commissions on discrimination and like raising the issues with the Komi Izhemtse there. And the major, again, a large oil spill took place just this year in 2021, like 2 months ago. Next, please. Here, the appeals to the global level were much less successful than in Sakhalin. Because these were kind of appeals, the banks were also tackled, and European Bank of Reconstruction and Development was tackled, but they said that while Komi Izhemtse are not recognized as indigenous by Russian state, they are just local population. And that's why they were not really trying to apply all norms which are in their guidelines applied to the indigenous people. And they were not reacting to the bank watch and to the campaigners against them. IGVE was sending reports to Commission of Economic, Social and Cultural Rights and Committee of Elimination of Racial Discrimination, and Russian government, of course, they were responding, but very formally, and they were saying that they were not acknowledging any discrimination of indigenous people on the Russian territory. And they decided actually to stop this stop these appeals to the global level, and they just cancelled the visa of IGVE person who was coming to Russia and writing these reports for 90 years. And of course, he's already not young, so it means that the visa is cancelled forever. Next, please. So the protests continue. Here, environmental NGOs are taking the lead now because indigenous people participation become weaker and weaker. There was also their leader died, who was framing the issue with IGVE, and other leader was co-opted by the state and supported by the company. There was no reaction from European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, and oil spills continue. So we see that here market campaign, which was organized to the global level, didn't brought any results that would affect communities on the local level. Next, please. So if we look at just why and what was the impacts in general on different levels of these campaigns, it looks like in Sakhalin, there was big global resonance on that. So it's after European Bank of Reconstruction and Development canceled its loan, all investment banks started to invest very, very carefully to Russia, and guidelines become much stricter. It was a coincidence and conversion of Russian interests of the Russian government with NGOs at that period of time. Russian government wanted to buy 50+1 shares from Shell. And that's why they were issuing 50 billion fines on the operation on Sakhalin 2, and trying to scare them with multiple violations. And that's why, and only that's why, they supported the protesters and NGOs fighting oil pollution in Russia. And then after Gazprom purchased 51 shares, because companies are foreign companies, they adopted all global standards. So they issued the tripartite partnership agreements with the government and indigenous people and implemented lots and lots of global standards and really changed practices on the local level. In Komi Republic, just the government was angry about appeals to the global level. Indigenous people are not recognized, and the government just cut any opportunities to connect with the global level. And the protests are supported by regional level of government, because in Komi Republic, everybody, including government and including Komi Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Protection, are very concerned about these oil spills. And they agree with the environmental movement and social movement that 97% of pipelines have to be changed. That's why they allow Greenpeace to organize camps there, to help create the database of oil spills, and they work kind of hand in hand with the people. And because these protesters just continuing to fight oil spills, they become kind of leaders of multiple protests. And there was kind of amplification on the local level, and they were fighting also against garbage polygon in Arkhangelsk, and then participating in Climate Week. While in Sakhalin, people are satisfied about their campaign, they have their partnerships, grants, and they are negotiating. They are not protesting any longer. They are negotiating whatever they need. Next, please. So just why the reaction to campaigns was so different in different places, and both are in Russia. First of all, Sakhalin campaign was historical campaign, and the country was very different in 2005, 2006, 2007 than it is now. And the politics was very different. Then, as I told, there was conversion of interests of Gazprom, who wanted to take over Shell and social movements in Sakhalin Island. That's why protests were supported by the government. Next, Russian government is not really, they are always much stronger in requiring clean operation of foreign companies, because it is their expense to introduce environmental safety. So they are happy to find them and to put it in the budget. But if it is a Russian company like Gazprom or Rosneft, they can operate and pollute much more in the same place. And also indigenous people, Nivki, Ulta in Sakhalin Island are recognized by Russia. That's why on the global level, they are also supported more. And in the local level, and the Russian government is caring about their interests much more than about Komi Izhemtsi, who are not recognized by Russian state. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Maria. That was such a fascinating presentation.